Hey everybody, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2020 Ford Ranger, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the Roadmaster Direct Connect base plate kit with removable arms. So this is what the base plate is going to look like whenever you're not using it, whenever you're not flat towing behind your motorhome. And honestly, as far as the appearance goes, I really don't think it can't get much better than this. Since the base plate just replaces your factory tow hooks, it's really not going to look out of place or stick out too much. And since we do have this opening here that was originally for our tow hooks, it's going to give us enough room to easily access everything and make hooking it up really straightforward. One thing I do really like is the fact that they give you a bracket here. That way you can mount up your wiring plug, and that's not something you see with every base plate. It's just one of those little things that make it much more convenient. It gives you a great spot to hook up your wiring, and in my opinion, it looks pretty good too. Whenever you are ready to hook up and flat tow, it's going to be super simple, and that's partly due to the fact that the base plate uses these removable arms. And the way these are going to work is more or less just kind of pop right into place. What you're going to do is put them into the base plate and rotate them about a quarter turn until this pin self-locks into position. So you turn that one in, and it's the same setup for the other side. And as far as actually getting your tow bar hooked up to the base plate, it's going to be just as simple. Since this is a direct connect, all you're going to do is line up your tow bar, take the pin, push it through, put the clip in the other side, and even the safety chain openings are going to be right there and easy to get to, so these will just snap into place. Now, one thing I do want to mention, the base plate is going to work with most Roadmaster tow bars. So there's going to be 5 main components that you're going to need to flat tow your Ranger down the road safely. First one's going to be your base plate. And that base plate's going to provide us with a solid and reliable connection point. That way we can hook up our tow bar. A tow bar is going to be that second component, and this is going to be that physical link that connects the front of your Ranger to the back of your motorhome. The third main component is going to be safety cables, and those are there in the event of an unlikely disconnect. These are going to keep everything connected to each other. The fourth main component is going to be tow bar wiring, and the wiring is going to transfer the lighting signals from the back of your motorhome to the back of your Ranger. That way it'll keep you safe and legal. And last but not least is a braking system. And what the braking system is going to do is apply the brakes in your Ranger whenever you hit the brakes in your motorhome, and that's going to help bring you to a more predictable stop. And there is just a couple more things I would suggest using in conjunction with those 5 main components just to make your overall experience that much better. One of them is what's called a brake light relay. And I recommend that because with these Rangers, let's say if you have on your turn signal and you hit the brakes at the same time, with the Rangers, what's going to happen is the turn signal flashing on the back of your truck is going to be overridden by the motorhome's brake signal. So people aren't going to know kind of what's going on. They're going to see the brake lights on the Ranger and potentially your turn signal on the motorhome, and things kind of just can get confusing that way. Another component is what's called a charge line. And what that's going to do is more or less kind of trickle charge or maintain your Ranger's battery whenever you're flat towing it. And that's because a lot of these braking systems use the Ranger's battery power. So by using a charge line, you're going to avoid potentially having a drained or dead battery whenever you go to disconnect and drive your truck around. There is one thing that I do want to mention, and that is the use of a high-low adapter. And in our case, we actually don't need it, but still something I figured I'd bring up. And the use of a high-low adapter, what that's going to do is make sure that your tow bar is riding nice and level. And so to figure out if you would need that, you want the measurement here from the center of your hitch or your pinhole on your base plate to the ground to be within 3 inches of the measurement here on your motorhome hitch from the pinhole down to the ground. In our case, on our base plate, that's going to measure about 15.5 inches. That's kind of just a reference. Keep in mind, you know, if your truck has different size tires or lift kit, something like that on it, that measurement could vary. But something that I figured I would throw out And if you do end up needing a high-low adapter, we have multiple different sizes and so on right here at etrailer. So at the end of the day, a base plate setup you really can't go wrong with. It's going to be super easy to use and look good as well. Now, as far as the installation goes, it's really not too bad actually. You do have to remove your bumper here, but that comes off pretty easily. And the base plate is more or less just going to replace those factory tow hooks. So really not too bad. I mean, it will take a little bit of time, but as long as you stay focused, shouldn't have any issues getting it done. Speaking of which, let's go ahead, pull into the shop, and put it on together now. To begin our installation, we're going to be here at the front of our Ranger, and along this bottom edge, we're going to have a total of 5 10mm bolts, just like this one here. So we're going to have one on this side of the tow hook, these 3 in the center, and the last one is right here. Underneath the vehicle here, we need to remove our skid plate, give us some more room to work, and that's going to be held in place by 4 15mm bolts, just like this one here. So we'll have 2 at the front and then 2 here in the back. We can lower this down and set it off to the side. Then if we look in this opening here where our grill is, along this top edge, we're going to have 5 push-pin style fasteners, and the way to get those removed is you can use a trim tool like this or even a regular old flathead screwdriver. You're just going to pry underneath the head of it and pull that base out. Go ahead and get all of these removed. And then once I have them out of the way, while we're right here, we can go ahead and remove these 2 10mm bolts that is securing our license plate frame. So now to actually get our license plate frame removed, if you look in this opening, there's going to be 2 kind of plastic tabs that go all the way back and connect to the bumper itself. And what you can do is get your hand behind there and just kind of push up on those tabs. Might have to kind of keep some pressure on it and do one at a time. And it should release. And if you take a look, those are what I was pushing up on to release this. But with this out of the way, you can go ahead and set it to the side. At this point, we can remove this section of our bumper here. And what I like to do is start at one side and just kind of pop it free. This is held in place with some clips. And these are very tight. So it will take quite a bit of force to kind of pop everything loose. So don't be afraid to use a little bit of muscle. So you're just going to kind of grab the corners and pull straight back. Once I get to about this point, come over to the other side and do the same thing. And usually when this last one releases, this wants to come off pretty quick, so just be aware of that. Make sure you have a good grip on it. So once we pop it free, if you have any wiring that's back here, you can disconnect it. If not, we can just go ahead and set this off to the side. Now what we can do is come here to our tow hook. There's going to be a little cover. You can just pull straight back on that and remove it. And I want to mention anything we do to this side of the vehicle from this point on, we're also going to do to the other side because it'll be set up the same way. So we can get that cover out of the way. And then we can get ready to remove our bumper itself. So on each side, we're going to have 3 21mm nuts. And what I like to do is remove that first one and just put it on, put it back on a couple threads. That way the bumper will be somewhat supported, a little more manageable to get removed. The other two I'll just completely take off. Now with an extra set of hands, we can actually get our bumper removed. So you take off that nut you left on there hand tight. Then we can pull back on the bumper. And you don't want to pull back too far because chances are good we're going to have some wiring that we're going to need to disconnect. So if you look here on the driver's side, kind of just behind our bumper there, here's our wiring. And you can just kind of pull down on it to make it a little easier to disconnect. And there's going to be a tab there in the center. You can push down on it, pull the two wires apart, and then we can set our bumper off to the side so we're safe. Now we're able to remove our tow hooks. And to do that, we're going to pull out these two 15mm bolts. So now if we look at the side of our frame rail here, you can see that there's going to be a pre-drilled hole. And there's going to be that same hole just on the inside portion of our frame that runs through. And what we need to do is enlarge those to the size listed in the instructions. So grab our bit and go all the way through. Once you have the holes drilled, since there is some bare metal exposed, good idea to just protect them with some paint. So I have a paint stick here that I'm going to use. However, you could always just come in with some spray paint and cover them that way. At this point, we can grab our base plate and one of these brackets. And these base plates are side specific, so check your instructions, make sure you have the right one. A quick way to tell also is that you want the safety chain opening here to face the outside of the vehicle, if that makes sense. But the way it's going to work is if we turn the base plate over, we're going to have a hole here. Our bracket is going to sit on it like so. And we're going to take a factory bolt and we're going to put this through both of them. And that's going to thread up into this factory well nut here that was originally holding on our tow hook. So with that being said, we'll grab our parts and just kind of a little bit of prep. Take our bolt, put on some red Loctite. This Loctite doesn't come with the kit, but you can always grab it right here at eTrailer. So base plate will kind of slide into place there. And then we're just going to get this bolt started hand tight for now. What we can do now is take the pipe spacer and put this inside of our frame rail here. And this is going to line up with the hole that we enlarged. So best way that I found is use a pair of vice grips like this. Gonna put it in there and hold it in place. And over here on the driver's side, we're going to use this top hole on our base plate. The passenger side will go together the same way, except it'll use this bottom hole as the attachment point. With that being said, we're going to take our bolt and a flat washer, put it through the base plate, through the frame, through that pipe spacer, where it will come out the other side, and then we can get on the rest of our hardware. So where the bolt comes out there, you're going to put on a flat washer, a split lock washer, and a hex nut. We'll just get this hand tight for now. So these brackets that we put on the bottom, you can move back and forth, and these are going to hold our skid plate up. So what I've ran into in the past is if you just tighten these down, sometimes they're out of alignment with our skid plate. So before we tighten them, I'm going to take our skid plate and just make sure everything lines up. I'll put a couple bolts in there to kind of hold it in position. That way everything will stay true whenever we tighten our bolts down, and we know when we get to the point where we're going to reinstall everything that this will fit the way it should. So with everything in place and hand tight, we'll come back and snug up all of our hardware. I use a 15 for this bottom one. Then I'll use a 19mm socket and wrench to tighten down this bolt. So now that everything's snug, we can come back with a torque wrench and tighten down all of the hardware to the amount specified in the instructions. Now at this point, it'd be a great opportunity to install some of your other flat toe components like wiring and a braking system. And that's because we're going to have all this extra room to work. Just makes it a lot easier. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So once you have them components installed, or if you already have them on, you'd simply reinstall the fascia the same way that we removed it. With an extra set of hands again is take our bumper, make sure you plug your electrical connector back in. And we're just going to put it back in place the opposite way that we removed it. So the base plate kit actually comes with this bracket here that we can mount up your wiring connector there. And if you choose to use it, this is simply just going to go over here on the driver's side over this innermost stud. So you'll put that on and then follow that up with the factory nut. With all this in place, we can go ahead and tighten our bumper back down. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Roadmaster Direct Connect base plate kit with removable arms on our 2020 Ford Ranger.